Oh, g'day, legends. I hope you're really well. Willie here again, because I guess some people are going to be watching this who I guess haven't actually watched my stuff, and that's completely fine, completely fair enough. But it's going to be very, very casual chat, basically just about, I guess, getting in and out of Ukraine and your time there as a journalist. And you can probably pull a lot out of this as well if you're going even for humanitarian effort stuff, and good on you. So a bit of my background. I spent 7 years within the Australian Defence Force as an infantry soldier and have deployed in that time to Afghanistan. I'm a very new journalist, but I've spent, I believe, maybe 12, maybe 13-ish in that period, 12, 13 weeks in Ukraine, and have crossed in and out 4 times, like in and out as one. So 4 times. So I guess I have some experience there, and I had time in Ukraine pre-war, so maybe about 5 weeks. I was in Ukraine before the war as non-accredited press. I didn't have a military accreditation, and then for the beginning, hadn't had that accred, and then, of course, now I'm accredited. But I guess I have experience in what it's like to be and then not to be accredited media. Now, I've got some notes. I've got an email sent to me, and the reason I'm making this is I get of a lot of, aspiring journos wanting to go, aspiring media, and even just people wanting to cross in and help humanitarianly on the humanitarian front. And they're all very frequently asked questions. So enough about me. We'll get stuck into that. The first thing I really want to touch on is expectations. Everyone wants to be a lot want to be like that Ross Kemp style on the front line, running around with the guys, getting videos of tanks shooting stuff and destroyed things and whatever. And I'm in that basket as well. But I think that expectation will let you down. Because one, there is no way to embed with the military, at least on the front, you have the front line and last line. Front line, is anywhere, within that artillery range. And then last line is that absolute last, because from this point on is Russia. Now, embeds on that last line, no one's doing it. It's not available. It's not a thing. The people who have got footage of things blowing up and firing and blah, 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 is either by luck or the last line, front line, has come to them, that they've been in a location that then Russia has hit. So I guess that expectation of that is, lets a lot of people down, let myself down as well. So that's something, I guess, to walk in with very early on, as well as access. You will be disappointed, and as I was, with what your access is to film what and where you can go. These recently occupied villages, you will not get into, at least until the civilians are back there, without being sort of smuggled through, I guess, by a local fixer. Maybe not smuggled is the wrong word, but sort of very quiet that you press, even if you're accredited with the Ukrainian military press ID. So that's very difficult as well. This is why most journalists within Kiev or Lviv or somewhere like that, reporting on things that may have happened a while ago, because, say Kharkiv, to get into those places on those frontline towns, whatever, is, one of those things. You're not really getting there unless you're somewhat lucky at the checkpoint or put through. And there's checkpoints absolutely everywhere where they'll check your passport, your ID. Occasionally will check what's on your SD cards, what you've been filming, go through your bags, things like that. And they're everywhere, and they can turn you around, and there's nothing you can really do. Even your fixer can't really do much. And this is getting harder and harder to even get out to these locations because of the fuel crisis in Ukraine. There's a massive fuel issue. For the military, they can fill up as much as they want, but civilians, being local or, us coming in to film, it doesn't matter. The fuel is incredibly limited, maximum 10 litres per person. And even then, 6-8 hour lines. And this is for a number of reasons, all from supply from, countries that don't want to send it in, like Belarus, or, Russia bombing oil refineries all the way down to some decisions made by the government to keep fuel prices at low so people can actually afford it, but then has closed a lot of smaller fuel stations who can't have that minimum markup. Okay, now I'm going to jump into a few things like finding fixers, translators, things like that. And I guess this comes down to a very cost thing. But one point on fixers I want to make is people treat fixers like how some people treat Sherpas climbing Mount Everest. That it's like, you are an employee of me and you are to give me this job. And it doesn't work like that, and it can't be. There have been people who are responsible for fixers dying, 100%. That the fixers have been like, I'm not comfortable doing this, and no, it's fine, keep going, and then fixer gets killed, and that's just a catastrophe. You really need to screw your head on about putting someone else in danger. So yeah, and that has happened where people have had their fixer killed and or themselves killed as well, because of, I guess, irresponsibility and having this sort of gun-ho attitude. If you're going to put yourself in danger, whatever, but putting others in danger, it's not cool. And it's becoming more and more prevalent because there's more and more inexperienced journalists, and I'll put myself in that, going because this is a trending thing in the news. People go, this is a way to make it in this business. I'm going to go here. I don't care about the dangers. I don't care about this. I'm just going to walk in and blah, blah, blah. Doesn't work like that. Everything's landmined, and what isn't landmined has checkpoints on it. So you sort of need to do it correctly. Okay, sorry, fixers. Look, fixers, your absolute minimum is going to be $100 a day, all the way up. And that's sort of just where it is. And finding them, look, it's one of those things. It can be a bit like, how'd you meet your fixer? I was just sort of in a bar talking to someone and they suggested me someone. It's very network heavy, but probably the easiest way is there's like a group. I'll put a screenshot of it here. It's like Media in Ukraine Help or something. And that group, people advertise themselves as fixers and as well as can recommend you people and other journos, blah, blah, blah. It's pretty good source for information. Transportation. I asked about that. Look, some people are buying their own cars, but then the fuel becomes a massive issue. But you can find fixers who also have a car and drive. I think that's probably the majority of fixers also drive. Dangers. The danger is real. Don't, I know this seems silly, but you can die doing this. There's been, I believe now 31 people, journalists, die in this war. I know we all have this. This won't happen to me, but, well, it can. It can either be a stray round or an artillery shell or whatever. There's been journalists killed by, at Ukrainian checkpoints because they're being silly, driving up to 100 miles an hour with TV on the vehicle, and the V looks like, the V on the side of the Russian vehicles, and get laced up and killed by accident, being silly. Dying, and this is a real thing. And it's happening, well, very frequently in the beginning, now still happening. So you really need to take that into account. And sourcing body armour to, I guess, mediate some of that danger is very difficult. If you can bring your own, absolutely do it. Buying body armour in Poland has become incredibly expensive because the body armour plate shortage is huge. For body armour and helmet in Poland, you're looking at about $3,000, which is just exorbitant cost. But sourcing plates in Ukraine, you're not going to source them at all, I would say, or cheap, and there's a lot of fake plates kicking around that won't do anything, might probably actually do a lot worse for you. So if you can bring your own plates, plate carrier helmet, absolutely do that. It'd be really recommended. How do I find stories and get in contact with people to talk on camera? That's hard. Finding stories, that's a hard bit because there's so many journos. There's like 8,000 or 9,000 journalists working in the country, and I guess that's something that is just time on the ground and talking to people, and how to getting in contact with people to talk on camera. Well, your fixer will help you do that because your fixer will speak Russian and or Ukrainian, depending where. Well, they'll probably speak both, but if you're in the east, it's almost solely spoken Russian. If you're in the west, it becomes more and more Ukrainian spoken language, and they will help you. But as far as finding stories, fixers can help you, but it depends where you are. The best stories will sort of fall into your lap. You'll get talking to someone and, this happened to me, whatever, and that is the story. And talking to people on camera, a lot of people just don't want to talk. A lot of people have just been through absolute trauma, whatever, and there's been a lot of journalists come act like idiots, and then they don't want it, and then it ruins it for everyone, and no one wants to talk. In the metros in Kharkiv, a recent video I did talking to people in the metro, they didn't want us there because they're like, no, all these other journalists came and treated us like this, were laughing about this, and didn't represent us, whatever, and then no one wants to talk. And that is completely fair enough. Remember, at the end of the day, you're in their country profiting off their trauma. And that is how people said. I wouldn't be, if I lost my house and I lost family or friends, whatever, and a journalist wanted to come in and make money off my story, I wouldn't be that big on it either. Just remember that ethical sort of boundary as well. But you'll find people that are absolutely wanting to tell their story and chat away for hours, and that's fantastic. Any do's and don'ts? Remember, you're entering a foreign country that doesn't have the same maybe normalities as like Australia, America, things like that. There's things that are rude, things that aren't rude, and that's a hard thing. But that's sort of learnt on the ground. Probably the biggest do is learn some Ukrainian. Just learn like good morning, good afternoon, hello, thank you, things like that. That goes a long way. But don'ts, I would say, if you're new to this, it's hard. Don't go alone. Don't go alone anywhere. Not because it's that dangerous, but it's probably pretty good to have someone to keep you in check, work with you, and if something happens, you've got like a backup. And at least probably a big do is, if you're going and you've never been to Ukraine before and you've never been in conflict before, my biggest one would be probably don't go. This probably isn't the best place to start. I can't talk, sorry. But if you are absolutely sold on going, then go spend some time in Lviv, spend some time in Kiev, cities that are very safe, or safe now, and sort of find your feet a little bit before you want to just start rolling into higher threat environments. Just learn that a bit, build your connections. Budgets. Okay. I think this is something that absolutely people get shocked by and will probably end the trip for a lot, and ended one of my trips because of budget. Now, I'm Australian, so as you know, Australia is a hell of a long way away, and flight prices at the moment all around the world with inflation are going up. So my flight's probably between $3,500 and $4,000 even to get there. And that wasn't, that's a non-negotiable. I'm not swimming there. When you're there, you're talking a day accommodation. Sorry, I'm trying to do the maths in my head to put to USD. Accommodation, you're probably looking at $40 USD a day minimum. Like minimum $40 USD a day. Food, let's say 15 USD. And then you're talking fixer, let's go work with 150 because that's probably more in the realm. So you're talking, and then you've got like just other little things, drinks and water, because you can only drink bottled water. It's very cheap, but of course you can only drink bottled water, and things like that. That all adds up. So once you are in country, you're talking, I'd say 250 USD a day, really. That's the price I'd work off. And then, that's one of those things. And then getting in and out, you may have to pay more, for a lift. If you don't want to catch the trains, well, that's going to skyrocket. But then again, on that transportation and budgets, catching the trains is the best way. You're better off getting a fixer in Kharkiv and a fixer in Kiev, and having, if they can link up and you catch the train in between. And it is, with the fuel going on, that is the best way, is catching like the sleeper trains. That's what I always call it. You're talking maybe it really goes. But if you want to go like Kiev to Kharkiv first class, I really recommend going first class. I know that sounds stupid, but it's not that much more. It's maybe $15 more. So you're talking more like $60 instead of $40, something like that. But you have your own cabin, and journalists, photographers, videographers, blah blah blah, carry a lot of expensive equipment. So you're probably, I find, better off doing that. And you leaves at 10 at night, arrives at 6. You get some sleep, you're into the day, go from there. And those are $60, $80 each way. So, but that adds into your budget too, and you probably need someone to pick you up at the other end, or you're just not going to get anywhere. Ukraine is huge. This is something to not underestimate. Ukraine is a massive country. The cities are very far apart. And that routes that used to be a flown route, used to go to the airport, and now by train or by road. And things are slowing down and becoming more expensive. But the train, that's something that I felt very safe doing. I both did it in wartime and in peacetime. So that is something that I definitely recommend doing. like equipment to take. In Kiev, there are some small camera shops open to get basic stuff. You might be able to buy a monopod or a cheap microphone or whatever. But, not to tell you to suck eggs, but take, I guess, double of everything. Try and go, like, as light as possible. I see guys rock up with big Pelican cases and suitcases and all this stuff. And, like, that's great if you've got a vehicle and a driver and stuff. But as soon as you're catching trains, moving around, it just becomes an absolute pain in the ass. So try and go as light as possible. I took 2 bags. I took a backpack, like a small backpack with my cameras in it, and a tourniquet and things like that, as well as my body armor, of course, and like a hiking bag with 1 pair of jeans, 1 pair of boots, 2 t-shirts, and my computer and whatever else. So I could be completely maneuverable on my feet, and it just made everything so much easier, so much slicker, so much bloody faster. Okay, crossing the border. So you're probably going to fly into Warsaw and or Krakow. Let's just say Warsaw, it's by far the most economically viable way. It's way cheaper to fly to Warsaw, I guess, from everywhere. So fly to Warsaw. I spend a night in Warsaw just to relax a little bit, get my life together, go get some pierogi because Polish pierogi is amazing. And then I catch the train through to Krakow and the train through to, I think it's pronounced like Przemysl, but it's at the Medyka border, Medyka. And then I walk across the border from there. I know you can catch the train in. I've never done that because it's so much slower. Like the train is tens of hours. So I always walk across the borders. Yeah, Medyka border, I walk across and you will have no problems at the border. You really won't. You go through, you'll immigrate out of Poland, yep, cool, leave into Ukraine. You may get asked what you're doing. If you don't have a press ID, it is a fair bit harder, but not that difficult. If you're a humanitarian, quote the humanitarian company you're working with, they may have paperwork as well for you. You're humanitarian. But yeah, you'll walk across the border, and the first thing I do as soon as I'm across the border at Medyka, I walk to the little store they've got there and buy a SIM card, a Kyivstar. Kyivstar or Vodafone are the best ones there that I've found. Buy a SIM card. It's like, don't roam, just don't do SIM roaming because it's so expensive and is apparently very obvious to like Russian networks. It picks up like, oh, this card is roaming from America, Australia, Britain, blah, blah, blah. I'm not 100% sure on that, but that's what I've been told. So a local SIM, I think, was like 100 hryvnia, which is $5 Australian, so like 3 USD or maybe $4 US. And it's like unlimited everything for 30 days. I always buy like 2 in case something happens to one. I can just put another one in or use on my second phone. And then I will jump on a bus. And this is where it's very, very handy to actually be maneuverable on your feet with light equipment. I'll jump on a bus and get a bus into Lviv, and then I'll get accommodation on like booking.com or whatever in Lviv, and then might catch the train from Lviv to Kiev, and then meet up with a fixer and go from there. Or you can cross the border in a car, but it's just so much slower. You're talking 6-7 hours. I believe that is just about everything. I'm sorry if this was long-winded, casual, and I was jumping all over the place. I am very sorry. For this video, I will actually I'll be pretty live in the comments, and anything I've missed, I do apologise for. I'll jump in and try and reply to as many people as possible. But I guess the main takeaways is this is a very dangerous situation. This is the only near-peer conflict we've seen since World War II, of this scale anyway. And they're near-peer. Like, people underestimate. The media, I think, is very underestimating Russia's capability. At the end of the day, Russia is still punching artillery out 30, 40, 50 kilometres. That has no mercy. That will kill you. It's not. And a lot of people, I guess, are seeing this, and I'm somewhat in this boat as well. But I at least had experience because I went pre-war and had spent time in an area of conflict like Afghanistan. Seeing this as like a shortcut way to being like a very like big time journalist, because this is so trendy in the news, and that's that's just is what it is. But it's just important to realise that there are real dangers in this, like proper real dangers. And if things go wrong, you are alone. You are by yourself. The Australia, America, whatever, they're not coming in to get you. You are doing it locally to get out if you're injured or you're going through Ukrainian medical or whatever. That is it. And if you want to look into those insurances and things like that, that becomes very expensive. I believe insurance is around $380, $400 a day if you have it. Personally, I didn't have it, but that's definitely irresponsible of myself. So at an absolute minimum, have some like trauma training, like not just first aid, not like, oh, he's had cardiac arrest, you know, pump on his chest. That's not what you need here. You need like training on things like chest seals, tourniquets, FADs, things like that. That should be an absolute, like a bare minimum, as well as then building connections, having like a decent plan if things go wrong of how to leave, and having your equipment in order, you know, your body armor, your sort of procedures of, okay, what do I do if this happens? What do I do if this happens? Have a real think about it. Okay, that's enough of me just banging on. Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it, and I'll stay in and try and answer whatever. So cheers. Look after yourselves. Stay safe out there, and say good day if you see me along the way. Righto. Cheers, dudes.
Yeah, I can't.
Yeah.